The Roaring Peacock Podcast.
And it holds a goal.
You must be talking about golf, Mac.
Was yeah. Played golf today, obviously.
Right.
I've played golf for about 12 years. It wasn't golf.
Well, if you like podcasts, you can find a hole in this one. There you go. That was. I tried.
That was seamless, man. Seamless.
Segued nicely into, whatever you were segueing into.
Right. Hello and welcome back to the Roaring Peacock LUFC Leeds United podcast, where we talk about the Mighty Whites, the greatest club in Yorkshire. And this episode, we'll be talking about Leeds 5, Cardiff 2. Absolutely smashed somebody. Fantastic.
Should have been
We're
5-3.
safe. Marsh, never doubted him for a minute. We'll look ahead to the Brentford game, and there's some latest news and some more shenanigans. Green poo? Anybody? My name's Adonis, and you know me as at the Headlights on Twitter. Is a very good hello from me. Joining us to discuss everything Leeds United is the man from the internet at Barney LUFC21.
Aye, all right.
Barney, very good, thank you, Barney. Much better for seeing your face, your wonderful pearly whites, and the Prince of Darkness navigating us through this cost of living crisis. Big Mac, Machiavelli at Ewan Metcalf. Mac?
Happy Friday, everyone. Hope you're enjoying your starts of the weekend. I know I am. We've just been having a talk about beer, so there you go. I've started already. But yeah, hello.
Cheers.
Good to see you, boys. By the way, it feels like a long time between. Cheers. It feels like a long time between podcasts now, don't you? I think it was the legacy of doing 3 a week during lockdown, when it felt like, oh, not them lot again. And now it's like, fucking, I haven't seen it for ages. When it was really on it, what, a week and a half ago? I don't know.
I dream of having energy like that. I don't know how I did it.
To be honest, I don't know how I don't know. I don't have anything to talk about. I think it was just the novelty of being able to speak to somebody outside of your own fucking bubble. It was just like enough, wasn't it? But yeah, it's, good times.
Barnes, how are you? Is your wife on strike? That's too personal, is it?
Wait.
Tell us about your wife, Barney.
Well, she's been busy. No, she's not on strike because they didn't vote to strike or something.
Okay.
But a lot of people just think, they did fuck all during lockdown anyway, and they're wanting to strike now. But some people are just absolutely clueless. They think, they get all that holiday. What do they do?
Don't fucking say marking. I were brought up by two fuck all, mate. Drunk wine every night, did fucking nothing. Fell asleep at 4:30 on the afternoon most afternoons when I came home in summer holidays, mate. Trust me, don't give me any of that shit, man. I'll debunk that myth straight away, boy.
Have you seen the results of their work? Look at this generation.
I want to know, and you can ask your missus about this, right? What is the crack with still doing virtual parents' evenings? Because, prior to COVID, you had a proper parents' evening where you could go and talk, and obviously have like a two-way conversation while we're on this education thing. And now you have a 5-minute slot with a teacher where literally there's talk at you. And then with the clock on red flashing down from 20 seconds ago. So have you got any questions? And just before you've spat out the first sentence of your question, it got, boom, next teacher, let's join the meeting. Fucking, you get talked at. You don't get a chance to ask anybody any questions.
You have been removed from the call. Goodbye.
Spanish. Mrs. Hazelwood. Next. All right, okay. I did a good one though. She went, and how's Shay finding Spanish? Bueno. She loved it. She loved that one.
Yeah, and then when it went off, she said, "Oh, fucking dickhead."
Yeah, what's that? I've had that from every dickhead dad that's been on tonight. He thinks he's original.
Yeah. Well done, Rodney. Well done.
Yeah. Only the 84th time somebody said bueno.
Yeah. Only
Buenos
20...
dias, Mrs. Hazelwood. Buenos dias.
Only 27 more buenos to go. Fuck this shit.
As you know, my only phrase that I know in Spanish is the only number I know is 19, which is 19 for obvious reasons, Pablo, and dos más, which is for 2 more beers. So two more. And dos más, yeah.
Okay, Leeds 5, Cardiff 2. Barnes, you weren't there, were you? Mac?
I didn't bother, no.
You weren't there either.
I tried to get there. Let's touch on this because, I like to have a moan about Leeds United tickets and the ground being too small. I tried to buy a ticket, went on at 10 to 1, sale started at 1 o'clock, 20 past 1, I'm in. It was actually earlier than that, about quarter past 1 I was in. Tried to get 3 tickets, choose your seat, couldn't get 3 together. Obviously, I've got an 11 and 13-year-old, so I couldn't leave any of them separately, really. I thought if I can get them 2 together in family stand, I can probably get away with that and maybe a block away or a few seats away or whatever. Ended up, could get 2 in the cheese wedge and 1 in the east stand. So I either had to sit with one of my kids in the cheese wedge or me sit in the east stand about 5 blocks away, half a stadium away. Watch
your kids with binoculars in the games.
Exactly, yeah. And watch them 2 in the cheese wedge. So just really, it's just not nice, is it? Because you can't get tickets together as a family, and it's really difficult getting a junior. This is worth saying as well. It's really tough getting a junior ticket. When you go on and like to buy a ticket, it comes up as adult, and you think, right, I've got my adult. Let's go and get 2, and you just can't easily find a way to get 2 junior tickets with your adult ticket that you've bought. So I just think there's a lot of, as we know, issues with the website, the way the tickets are done, and of course the capacity. This argument that if we go down, we're big, so we can't. It's a load of bollocks. If you went down to the Championship with a decent team that was winning, it'd be full every week. So why not invest in, as they've talked about for so long? I guess that the ownership issues won't help. We need to make a big stadium because it's impossible getting tickets. Even for a cup game. I mean, it was sold out, which is credit to Leeds fans, isn't it? Turning up on a bloody freezing Wednesday night to watch a replay against Cardiff, a struggling Championship team. So, well done to the crowd, but it's just really uncomfortable getting tickets for me and the 2 boys, which they've rarely seen them in the Premier League, which is really upsetting because they watched enough of them in the Championship, bless them, when it wasn't great. And, anyway, that's my moan over. I did watch it. I watched it on a stream, so I did watch the whole game, so I can comment.
Excellent. We won't have to boot you off the pod just yet then. Barnes?
Not just yet.
First thoughts? Leeds 5, Cardiff 2.
I think we'll do all right in the Championship next season, to be honest. No, but seriously, I thought that some of it was quite good to watch, actually. We actually look pretty good. And Willy Yeboah is just an incredible player. He's absolutely ridiculous.
Okay. Mac, first thoughts?
Same. I mean, found our level, haven't we? Battered a struggling Championship team, scored 5 goals, looked fluid going forward. Was it the 3rd goal? Was it Rodrigo's goal, sorry? Where they broke out from the back, the passing from the back? Or was it Nonto's second? I can't remember. But, lovely football. Bielsa-esque. Kind of football, one touch, playing out the back, everybody knowing where each other were. Great advantage from the referee, by the way. I've got to mention that we give referees it enough, don't we? But he played a great advantage. And then we're running, and you look at Rodrigo. I mean, wow. I mean, we talk about Nonto. who was incredible. But Harrison was brilliant centrally as well. Set up 2 of the goals, really clever passing. I thought he was really combative and intelligent. A pretty comprehensive performance, probably nullified or slightly taken the edge off it. And I know people say I'm complaining and moaning about this, but by them scoring 2, possibly 3 goals against us, and it gets back to the point we made the other week that people only have to have a limited amount of chance. I think they probably scored with just about every shot they had on target, and the goal that got ruled out was a bit unlucky, I felt, for them. So it could have been 5-3, and if it had been 3-1, I reckon it could have been a different game. So
4 shots on target.
Really, really. So that's the worry, is that the defence, once Werber went off, I thought we looked vulnerable. And there is an issue with the system. People going about Ayling making the mistake and the handball from Rocker. But even if you look at the positioning of the players when Ayling made that mistake, there's still 2 or 3 people in the box unmarked, and the back post is completely free. So if you've got a player who can find a pass, that's going to get exposed every week in the Premier League. So that's the taking the shine off it moment. But I thought attacking wise and how we started the game, we look at Rodrigo, people give Marsh it, but he really did not thrive under Bielsa, did he? And he's definitely thriving now. I mean, he looks like a different player. He looks leaner. That goal that I'm on about where they broke out, he looks quick. He's like moving across the turf at 100 mile an hour. So a lot of positives to be taken from it. I think we needed it, and I think ultimately, if we can take that into the game on Sunday, which is equally much more important, we want to take 3 points on Sunday, don't we? So, yeah, it was good. First thoughts are reasonably positive, apart from the obvious glaring defensive issues that we talk about every week.
Okay, yes. Leeds 5, Cardiff 2. Excellent start. Brilliant clipped ball to the back post, which is something we haven't done enough of. We've been stretched a lot. Other teams always looking for that overlap and that player that seems to be in acres of space on the other side of the pitch, the switch ball. And I thought it was a brilliant clip ball from Rodrigo, who's having the season of his life. And probably one of the best goals I've ever seen from a Leeds player. It's right up there with, Yeboah, Ayling. It's not as good as Yeboah. Might be better than Ayling's.
It's a difficult technique to hit it coming over somebody's shoulder and hit it with your right foot coming from the right into the top corner at that angle. So it's a different skill, but I know what you're saying. It's equally, as technically as good a goal. I think the thing you said it there. We don't clip those balls. Nobody makes those runs though. Nonto's fearless. He will make the run. If you watch before, as Rodrigo shifts his feet and tries to clip it, he's pointing where he wants that ball. And he knows exactly what he's going to do. He's going to run into the defender, push him, give himself a few yards of space, and then hit it. And I just don't think we've got a play. We haven't had a player like that. You could argue Rafinha the first year, maybe the first season that he came, but getting a different place. So does he comes in a lot, doesn't he? And really dangerous, brilliant. I mean, he's going to be a special talent. Hopefully, we can. Invest, go up the table, and people like that want to stay and get involved rather than, easy pickings coming and getting our best players off us because we're languishing at the bottom of the table.
We didn't have a lot of defending to do, but when we did defend, I was worried. I thought Rasmus did okay, and if you look at these stats, I pretty much agree with them. I thought Werber, he's made a huge difference, and thank God we found out today that he's in training, so that's good. Firpo, never been convinced of him in 2 years. I don't know what's happened to Llorente. He seems to have a mind melt every game. Adams is good. I'm still yet to be convinced that he's a Phillips replacement. And Rocker, I don't know. Seems to have gone off the boil last two games as well.
I love Rocker though. I think he's a class player. Just needs the right sort of players around him. And I think if the quality we're adding to the front line, I think that's ideal.
Mhm.
But it's
True.
it's for me. I think it's the defence to the midfield to attack, and we don't have that sort of player that can play it out. With where we've struggled, I think Cock's good at doing that. I think a lot of people will disagree with that, but we don't have that sort of defender that can play the ball out because it's all very compact, and that's when we end up getting into those mistakes. But I mean, that's that goal that Rodrigo scored. We looked really, really good because it was clean, crisp passing. It was all through the middle. I can imagine Marsh was like, "That's the sort of football I want to play." But can you imagine doing that against one of probably the best pressing teams in the Premier League, like Arsenal? I can't imagine doing that. So there's a different way of doing it. But I think Verba is probably a player that suits the system more than a Cooper.
My only thing with Rocker is I feel like he's not the best defensive midfielder, and I'm not convinced at him as the box to box as the number 8 either. He's not a specialist in one way and he's not a specialist in the other way. Yeah. He's just a bit of a jack of all trades, and yeah, you know what I mean. Like,
what they've done though is they've obviously brought. If you could mould those two players together into one player, you've kind of got a Phillips.
Calvin Phillips.
So I think, yeah, because if you look at Adams, combative, dominates the midfield, he gets stuck in, puts a foot in, aggressive, decent short, keeping possession passer, which Phillips used to do well quite a lot of a game. And every so often he'd launch a 30, 40-yard pass diagonally to Harrison or to Rafinha. And ultimately, with not having that width, doesn't help him to do that. And I don't think he's got a lot to hit up front because Rodrigo, again, isn't that kind of player where he's going to spin off and go behind. He wants to come in short and clever pass and manipulate space. But I think that what I saw from Rocker in the first few games, when he was obviously less concerned, I think, probably about the back four and less playing with a bit more. He was dropping really deep. The game against Cagliari and the game as well early in the season, deep into the back four almost. He's picking the ball up like Phillips would have done, and he's dictating from there. And I think that's where he's at his strongest. I don't think we've got that quite right yet, and I don't think the back four being as they are. Not a lot of faith and trust in them at the moment. Is there? Let's be honest, from all over the pitch, you can see that. I don't think that's helping Rocker's game at all. That's the only caveat I would put on that. Like Barney, it's a bit like Rodrigo. You could see that they were really thrived under Bielsa's system, and you're now seeing him come out. And I think that despite him being a kind of Marsh buy, he's not thriving under the current system. Now, again, when they sort that back four out, I think he will become a good player in that system. But you've got to give people a little bit of time as well. Because if you look at Aronson, I mean, he's fucking gone backwards significantly, hasn't he? If you look at, Adams, Christensen probably isn't. You could argue he's our third best right back. So nobody's really come in and apart from Nonto, which funnily enough was the one that was told wasn't ready and was almost a last minute kind of desperation buy.
We were going to leave him in Switzerland.
Yeah, you don't need to spend 40 million euros. If you've got, and again, everybody's given a lot of stick. You've got to give him credit for that because that's a. It's not the most majestic. It's not a magical find, is it? He's playing for Italy. He's the youngest ever capped Italian player, so he's got to have something about him. But what I find that is because he is exciting in it, and it's quite interesting actually because I was out last night with a lad, Cardiff fan, one of mine, like a business partner of mine. He's a really great lad, played at a good level. When I was out with him last night, and he was at the game on Wednesday in a box, and I was winding him up saying it was easy, And I said, "Well done, you beat a struggling Championship side who were probably going to get relegated. Well done." And I said,
scored 5 goals,
and still nearly got
And Cardiff scored 5 goals against us over 2 games.
Exactly, and it's really interesting to get their view. So I said, "Well, what do you think?" He said, "You know what? I thought on the ball you looked really good, off it not so good." And I was, I sort of said, "Who do you think's the decent player?" I said, "I like Rodrigo. I like Nonto's obviously a superstar. He's going to be brilliant. Harrison played really well. Not sure about Rocker. Adams, yeah, not bad. But it literally just annihilated Llorente, and he played centre half at a good level, did Darren, and Firpo. I was like, that was his best game he's had in 8. He played really well in both games against Cardiff. He went, he's shit. He said, you need a proper left back. He's shocking him. So I think from a neutral point of view, it's really interesting to get that view. He follows Leeds because he lives in Leeds now, but he's a Cardiff lad. And he was just like, he absolutely slated Firpo. And I thought Firpo had quite a good game, but it's like you said, but look at the opposition. You know, he's not playing anybody, is he? And he's got a lad who's willing to work backwards and forwards and be combative on his behalf, you know, in Nonto. Not convinced, so it's interesting that.
I was going to say about Willy was that, I mean, I got some stick for the tweet I said about that Orta should get some credit, and also Marsh for what Nonto's doing. But yeah, it's very well saying that Willy's played for Italy, but Italy are going through a bit of a transition period anyway. They didn't qualify for the World Cup. They're not exactly up there at the moment. Yeah, they won the European Cup, but they're still going through a transition period with some of the players they've got into that team. So for me, I think that Marsh needs to have a bit of respect as well. I still have massive issues with him, don't get me wrong. I think he needs some respect of giving him the chance to come in, even though he said he wasn't ready for it. And he's 18 years old. I think he's probably going to be well ahead of where Rafinha is now. Rafinha was 26 when we got him. I think he's going to be better than him.
So difficult to gauge those kinds of things, isn't it? Because we don't see the training. None of us have really watched Nonto for a long time until he came to Leeds. So it's difficult to see.
10. I know everything about him.
I've been watching him for ages.
But you can see big differences under managers. And sometimes it's instant and sometimes it takes a while. So it's a bit of a transitional moment for Marsh as well, and how we judge him. If you look at what happened with Arteta, obviously they went on a very bad run and it was Arteta out, wasn't it? And they were complaining fiercely, maybe even more than we are.
Yeah, definitely.
And he's turned it around. Spend a lot of money, but I mean, do you get the feeling that Marsh is capable of doing that? That's the issue. And the other thing that you talked about, Matt, was we've seen some players definitely regress, and it's just hard for us, especially because we saw an almost instant improvement under the previous manager.
Yeah.
The thing is, though, is saying about players that have regressed, that the players that probably regressed is, would you say, Cooper, Ayling, some of the old guard. So when they peaked under Bielsa, it was because they came from such a low point to a high point, and now they're to a point where they're probably towards the end of the career as well. They've done what they've done for the club. So I think for me, I'm still conflicted about Marsh. Sometimes I think, give him a chance. I think he's doing all right. I can see what we're trying to do. And then there's sometimes it's the same goal that goes in all the time. And you think, as a coach, if that's the same goal going in all the time, you do something about it. And that's a real frustration.
Bamford, like a new signing?
Yet to be seen. I think it's great. Your first game, you come back and you just come on as a sub. You're up for it, and he looked happy. You know, he looked a bit more like the old Bamford. I think when you've seen, a bit dishevelled and his hair not cut, and he looks, his eyebrows were tweaked properly down and threaded, and he just looked like the old Bamford. Big, a smile on his face and a bit like a young kid. Great, but it's one half a game. I think we've got to see it consistently over 12, 15 games, and let's be honest, he's hardly played over a season and a half. So I didn't realise he'd played 10 games this season. This season. So I mean, let's just hold back on that. On that and on Nonto, just really quick. I think it was really interesting in what Roy Keane said. Let's just calm down. We've got a long way to go. He's still got to develop. He's got to do it for a longer period of time. But I think that with Bamford, if he can replicate anything that he had the first season back in the Premier League, absolutely like a new signing. I mean, he's got that sort of languid style that can frustrate people at times. But I'll tell you what, the finish is fantastic, too fantastic, and didn't need a. You sort of forget that the second goal, the little flick round the corner that Jack was really typical of when him and Rafinha used to link up. I can't remember the game. Was it Fulham, where he did that little clever sort of drag back and then played Rafinha in. I thought the pass to Gelhardt and the 1-2 with him and the finish, the little touch and then the left foot finish into the bottom corner was fantastic. So, yeah, 100%. If we can get him back anything like, honestly, Donny, it'd be like a new signing, yeah.
Yep, Barnes, Bamford, and we'll finish off talking about Cardiff.
I think the fact that we don't have to rely on him, I think it's probably less pressure on him as well and less pressure on the fans to say, right, come on, Bamford, you're going to score for us. I don't think he's going to be a starter all the time, but the fact that Rodrigo's scoring goals and from this team as well, we're not having to rely on one player that's going to be scoring goals for us all the time. We've got some players that are chipping in as well, which is good to see.
Okay, yeah, he looked a bit tired to me. He was blowing hard by the end of it, Paddy. But I just thought, fantastic finish. Yeah. Just that's what we need, and just somebody up top to soak up the ball a bit. I mean, Rodrigo's been fantastic, but if we can get them both on the pitch at the same time, both scoring goals, we might be all right. Because if we do score 5 goals every game, we'll probably stay up.
We might win one or two.
We might, yeah. We might win 1 or 2.
The thing with Bamford is now, I mean, you look at Rutter, whatever he's called, that we brought in. Who's getting dropped? Because at the moment, it's hard to see who you leave out of that side because, Rodrigo's made himself pretty undroppable. You can't drop Nonto the right-hand side. And to be fair, Somerville was one of our better players before he got injured. It's a tough ask. And people going about Aronson, you went on about regressed players there, Barney. It's not just the old guard. Gelhardt's gone backwards. Aronson's gone backwards. Christensen's gone backwards, right? So you've got 3 youngish players there that I don't think have got anywhere near the levels that they were previously. So that's my thing with Marsh is that he's not. The one thing I thought he would do is instill this kind of confidence, belief, and kind of man management in the players, which Bielsa probably wouldn't have done. But he doesn't seem to have that either, and that would have been his one strong point or his one sort of winning point for me. So there is some issues there. I mean, listen, if they don't play Harrison centrally above Aronson at the moment, that's another problem. I think he's picking people on favouritism and on past reputations at the minute. You've got to pick the people in form. I thought Harrison was really, really good. Again, limited opposition, but Aronson, when he came on again, looked terrible against the same opposition with tired legs. He looked dreadful. So
Marsh in the press conference today, he said that he doesn't see any reason why he couldn't play Bamford and Rodrigo and Rutter in the same lineup. And like he said, he can't drop Nonto. So, I mean, that'd be a 4-2-4, wouldn't it? So we'd be playing Nonto on the left, Bamford, Rodrigo, and then Rutter on the right wing. You'd be happy with that, Barnes?
It's just ridiculous, really, isn't it? If you look at, I mean, we've been crying out for depth in the team. It's quite ridiculous the depth we've got. As Marsh said today, didn't he? He likes to call his front players weapons because he's got an arsenal of players now, and I think that we've got those players there now. It just needs to click for me because the club have invested heavily again, and in a window where they said they would never invest heavily. So he's being given. It looks like the trust him, and hopefully it might just click. I'm still on the fence with it all, but hopefully it'll click.
Okay.
We all want it to work. We all want it to work, don't we? That's the point. It's the people say you're after somebody or you've got it in for him. No, I'm not at all. I want Leeds United to win football matches. It's as simple as that. When we're making the same mistakes week after week. I mean, the thing about that formation, Donny, which is interesting, is that if you go that the right hand side is massively imbalanced. You know, at the West Ham game, when we were sat in the south stand, so you were watching the width of the pitch, which was really interesting because you've got Nonto and kind of, you know, Firpo, who's playing on the left, giving them width on the left. The right hand side, literally, Christensen's in his defence, he's covering everything down that right hand side. There's nobody there. So, you know, Aronton's going drifting inside. You know, odd times Rodrigo will come out to the right, but otherwise it's like a barren land down there, and it's so open, and that's often where the space comes as well in defence. It's almost like we've forgotten that we've got a right hand side. So maybe having somebody playing or sticking to the right hand, you know, hugging the right hand wing and dragging the play across a little bit, giving us more balance will be a good thing. But yeah, how are you going to fit them all in now? But people like Bamford, like, you know, Gelhardt looks like he's going to go out on loan, but they're going to have to step up to keep their place, and that can only be a good thing, because when, as Barney said, you were relying on Bamford to score the goals, bless you, when you were relying on him to score the goals, when that's the only place the goals are coming from, him and Rafinha, then the pressure's on you every week, and I think it started to tell with Bamford. I think now having a backup, having different people contributing, but also, you know, any football team you're in, if you see somebody come in who you think, well, that's a challenge to my position, that you go up a level automatically. You know, you work harder. You know you're under pressure, and either you thrive under that pressure or you don't. And it's going to be interesting to see how it pans out over the next few months, because certainly attacking wise, we've got probably the best options we've had in a very long time.
Best option since Becchio and Beckford and stuff for the level. And then before that, obviously, you'd be talking last time we were in the Premier League, I guess.
I would probably say that's where we're at now. Yeah, we've got the best options we've had up front since the Premier League days, because, yeah, I mean, Becchio and Beckford were great, but, you know, they were playing at a certain level. They never played in the top division. So, yeah, I think we're probably at that level now, where we're sort of talking about we've got the best option we've had since we were last in the top division here.
Okay, so that was the Leeds 5, Cardiff 2 review.
Most of our stats come from LUFC Stats or LUFC Data on Twitter. A very special thanks to Barney Stewart, Cook, Ewan and Howard Metcalf, Josh Pearson, Laura, Leon and Rob, The Light Show, and all our family and friends.
So many games to play, don't care what's on your